Hey everybody, I'm Shoshana Sanker and I am so happy to welcome you to ULR ZoomCast number 3. We have done 2 beautiful ones. We're on number 3 and they're always really exciting and wonderful. Today we've got Jason Kaplan, the star of our show, with us, and we have special guest Michael Burnham. Welcome to you both. In just a minute, I'm going to let you guys give a little bit of background about y'all. But first, we just want to say that today's show is going to be about something that is really important in today's society right now, we think. Mindfulness and meditation and really looking inside yourself. I mean, the world is crazy right now, so it's good to slow down and kind of get inside your head in a good way. So we're going to talk a lot about that today and how it relates to some religions. And some names that I had never even heard of before until Jason brought this one to me. So again, welcome guys. Jason, you just want to kick us off with a little hello, give us a little bit of background?
Sure. Thanks, Shoshana, for hosting again. It's such a pleasure working with you. And now my friend Michael Burnham is on. And so a little bit of background is working here with meditation and meeting people in Memphis. I came across Michael Burnham and a program, one of many of his programs, but the program I came across was Monday night at Anshe Synagogue here in Memphis. A mindfulness and Jewish practice intertwined. I'll let him explain that better. But I really enjoyed the meditation session. We met for coffee, which is one of our hobbies, to talk about coffee and talk about meditation. So it really was a beautiful kickoff that way. And as I mentioned in other previous sessions, that I really am interested in Abraham Abulafia, a rabbi from about 800 years ago. So in talking with Michael, I said, I'd like to do a Beit Abulafia, a Home of Abulafia project, but I would really love your expertise and help and guidance in more in-depth meditation to start the music part. And he said, well, that would be a great way to collaborate. So we've been doing that for about 4 or 5 sessions, and we're refiguring it for the new COVID age. But it's really opened up a lot of doors I'll talk about later. But that's my opening summary of the friendship we've developed and some of the projects we've been working on.
Love it. Okay, good. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into some of those. But Michael, I want you please to share with all the lovely people watching a little bit about your background in meditation and where your spiritual journey started, and then sort of the path that it's taken you on to where you are now.
So though both my parents were Jewish, I was not aware of that they were until I was age 17. And I discovered it at that time by visiting a friend who happened to have the same last name as my mother's maiden name. So in many ways, my spiritual journey was totally on my own for years and years. I spent a chunk of time in Zen Buddhism, spent a period of my life living by myself, meditating 12 to 14 hours a day. My wife happens to be Jewish, and when she said she wanted to be married by a rabbi, I was confused what a rabbi would be doing at a wedding. She said she wanted to be married under a huppah, and she had to explain to me what a huppah was. So at some point, actually years when my sons became the beginning of bar mitzvah age, I wanted them to understand their roots. This is a little long, Shoshana, but I'll just keep going into
good, please. I'm fascinated. You've gotten me already. Keep going.
We started going to Temple Israel, and my feeling was you can't drop people off and say, this is really important, I'll see you later. We went in. Right. Next stop in my journey was meeting Rabbi Yehuda Silver, who was the Rav at that time, Kesset Torah. And he sort of invited me to his house. And I just want to paint this scene. At this point, I had very little Jewish background, not that I have a lot now. I knock on the door. I had never met him. And this Orthodox rabbi with the white beard and the coat says, come on in. And so we spent an hour talking and looking at some texts. Now I'd say we spent an hour learning. Back then, I thought this was rabbinic therapy. It was pretty good.
Right.
So long story short, that became my journey. I then somewhere along the way ran into Musar, Yisrael Salanter's work, and the work of Alan Moranis, Everyday Holiness, and developed a Musar practice. And a component of a Musar practice is meditation. And so I then rediscovered my roots, really, got back into meditation. And about 8 years ago now, I started studying with then University of Massachusetts Medical School and now Brown University. I'm teaching mindfulness-based stress reduction, which I do for Methodist Le Bonheur Healthcare. And through that process began to run meditation circles, the one Jason mentioned, and to really explore what meditation is, but most importantly, what's the roots of meditation in a Jewish setting?
You've come a long way. That is quite a journey.
It's an interesting process when you look at, when we talk about mindfulness, and I think it's really important for people to understand, there are a lot of misconceptions about it. A lot of people think the purpose of mindfulness is to stop your thoughts. And I think when we really look at it closely, it's to know where your mind is rather than where your mind. A lot of meditation will focus on a specific object of focus, usually the breath. And what we're really working on there is when the mind wanders and we realize the mind has wandered, we're cultivating mindfulness.
Right.
The next thing that we're trying to do is when you bring the mind back, we're trying to cultivate hesed. Can you do that in a spirit of warmth and friendliness to yourself? And then as you sit there and wait, we're cultivating, I think it's shalavut, patience. Someone might help me at the Hebrew. So really, and this all comes from Jewish texts, that's what we're doing in meditation from a Jewish perspective. It is not at all foreign to our own religion.
Right. No, it's definitely woven in. And I think you're right that people just don't quite understand how it all works. And Savlanut is patience, and that's something I've had to work on. So that's why I know that. Okay, Jason, let's hop on over back to you. Michael shared with us where he started and where he's gone. So I would like for you to do the same, if you would, and also talk about how all of the mindfulness and meditation specifically relates to Judaism. But then you also shared something so interesting with us before we hopped on here about how you see all of this relating to what your true happiness really is. And I really enjoyed what you were saying. So I'd like you to sort of bring that into, if you would, after you share about your journey in a little bit more detail.
Sure. Okay, so I mean, I also grew up, born in Philadelphia, grew up in Richmond, two Jewish parents and a bar mitzvah and a big party, and it was all very nice. But I remember being on the bima, and the photographer wanted to take pictures, and they said, well, hold the Torah with your parents. And I was holding it, looking at it, going, I wonder what's in this thing. And I just had no idea, and that really stuck in my mind that I was holding it, and I was ready for the picture, and I was a Jew, but I couldn't open it and read it. But even at that time, I wanted to move on. And I did start my journey with Buddhism and going to the Grateful Dead concerts and looking at music and meditation. I've always been interested in that. Michael made a good point that I always thought Buddhism was about no thoughts and no self and extinguishing the self. And perhaps that's part of the tradition, and perhaps mindfulness has its own unique path now in America. But at the time and everything that I read, I thought that that was what it was about. So I really did not have much interest in a meditation that had no thoughts. At Emory University, there was a teacher that came and said, you know, this is where you release all thoughts. And I thought, I'm Jewish. I can never give that up. That's no, I can't.
That doesn't work.
That doesn't work. It was like, immediately, my shoulders went up. I was like, Dad, we can't do that. So I never really came back to that type of meditation. So my journey took me to becoming observant in college and discovering Judaism through there, in the mystical Hasidic world and the Chabad world. And I eventually went on to the Sephardic world and, modern Orthodoxy. I mean, now I've kind of released all labels, but I've come to a place where I found a teacher from 800 years ago, Beit Abulafia, who laid out a path of combining letters, Hebrew letters, which I use to combine music, and it's given me the ability to think about happiness. To your question, my big breakthrough this year is that I've been attempting to achieve happiness and think of spirituality as being positive and being a peaceful person, and I have failed at that. I mean, I think people think of me as a positive person, but I don't feel like achieving happiness, or people say, are you happy with your life? And it doesn't make sense to me. And what's really made sense to me is through music and Abulafia and meditation, I have been able to be aware of the full self of my jealousies, angers, disappointments, frustrations, and really feel it, be aware of it, and
Mhm.
not just choose that one dimension called happiness and just stick with one flavor, because that makes me feel like in a straitjacket. So I've been feeling that. And then with Michael and his meditation and his guidance and his leading of our Beit Abulafia program. And then after he does that, we go into the music, and I just felt that aha moment at age 42, like, aha, after I go through all that, and this is Jason Kaplan, and these are all the complexities and things. I'm not just a happy, positive person. I'm a mix of crazy whirlwind of all kinds of things, but I'm aware of it and I accept it. That's really what I learned as a student and a friend of Michael, is how to get that mindfulness into the music Abulafia piece. And it's really opened up my life. And I really felt so strongly about it. I asked him if we could talk about it and beam it out that other people might benefit from it.
Love it. Okay. I want to hop back to Michael in just a minute, but Jason, give us a little bit more details about Beit Abulafia and Abraham Abulafia so we can really solidify how you're using that in today.
Great. So briefly on Abulafia, he was a mystic. I think he might have thought he was the Messiah. He was a very colorful person. Some rabbis oppose him. Some rabbis love him. He's quoted by some of the greatest Kabbalists, like Rabbi Chaim Vital. He was opposed by the Rashba. Controversial, but essentially, what he did for me was that Maimonides is known as the great rationalist of Judaism.
Right.
So Abulafia said he is the great rationalist, but he's also a great mystic. He just, Maimonides never wanted to outline his mystical path or experiences. He thought that was, to me, he thought it was so personal that he never wrote it down. But Abulafia opened up a path to be a student of the Rambam and to be a mystic and to follow Kabbalah. So he's been very subterranean, I would say, for 800 years, until Moshe Idel started writing about him and people in Israel. And now I see him a lot of places, actually.
Really? That's interesting.
I see YouTube videos coming out. I see more people writing books about him. So for me, Beit Abulafia was, to me, again, to express the key that he unlocked for me, this great rabbi, and to see if it might help other people unlock that too.
Can I jump in? Because there are a couple
Please.
of things that I found through Jason. I started to read about Abulafia, and there are a couple of things that are really interesting to me. One, he wanted to bring the emotion and the spirit into Kabbalah. He felt that it had become very dry, very, in a way, mirrors what Baal Shem Tov wanted to do with general Judaism. Well, and so that was interesting. He is very controversial because a lot of people don't want to bring the emotions, the ecstasy that one can have in a religious experience. And I read something about him recently that made me think so much of what Jason does with music. One of the things Abulafia really focused on was the spaces within the Hebrew letters. He wasn't just involved with the letters, but he was looking at what happens if you look into the spaces. And I think it was Itzhak Perlman who said, you should listen to the space between the notes. That's where the music is. And it just all came together of why Jason would be so taken by a mystic and a sage who says, look at what's not there, because that's where the magic is.
Right. I love that.
Yes.
Michael, tell me a little bit about how you ended up meeting Jason and how you guys figured out, oh my gosh, we should partner together. And then tell me a little bit about what you are gaining from y'all's partnership together.
Well, I think a friend of mine found out Jason was interested in meditation and casually walked by me at Young
At
Israel.
Amjay?
Pardon? No, this was at Young Israel.
Oh, okay.
Said, do you know Jason Kaplan? And I said, no, never heard of the guy. He said, well, someday you two should hook up because you have a shared interest. And I'm not sure whether we saw each other at a minyan or whether Jason, one of us reached out for each other. And as Jason said, I said, come to the Monday night that I was leading at Anshe. We went and had coffee. And it's a sort of, you meet your brothers and you go, wow, this makes so much sense.
I love that.
what I get out of it though really is it's all the same. It's a continuum. It's not like there's meditation, there's music. If you really want to be mindful, it's just life, right? I think that's what Jason was saying before. We're trying to engage in our lives in a way that lets us embrace the moment and be fully aware of all of our shortcomings, all of our richness. And when I'm working with Jason and he brings this joy to music and this just a desire in Beit Abulafia to share it and to bring people in, because what we do isn't a listen to Jason play. We're very involved in ourselves in creating the music. And if we look at our tradition, naguns are a spiritual experience. Creating music is just a very deeply rooted spiritual Jewish experience. And so that's what Jason is bringing. We're beginning with some mindfulness, and it's enriched my life as I listen and work with Jason and extend from just, the silence. And then we listen to the silence between the beautiful notes that Jason creates.
Right. I completely relate. I've participated in them before with Jason, and it's just always better and elevates my mood, and it puts me like on a good path for the rest of the day. And then hopefully as we can learn to be mindful and self-aware, then that just continues throughout your day every day. So Jason, tell me a little bit about how y'all's spark ignited between the two of you, and then maybe about how Michael's ideas and ULR come together. I mean, obviously we're understanding that they pair well. So maybe give us some specifics and some more details about how you guys work together.
That's great. That's great. I want to talk about the first time we worked with the JCC, who I want to thank them very much. Jeremy Weiser over at the program there let us have a room at the art gallery. So that was our first one. And that's really where the spark happened. I mean, the spark certainly happened over coffee, and it might have been the caffeine, but I think it was spiritual too.
Maybe both.
Stuff over there at the hub. And so when we were talking and just sharing our backgrounds, how we were very distant, different degrees from Judaism, and we made our way back and how we made it back, just so many commonalities. But again, I think of myself as a friend and student of Michael, because when that first session happened at the JCC, and I can't remember which month, I think it was October of last year, I was listening to him guide everybody, and I felt all those doors in my mind open. So that was really the spark, when he gave me yet another key of a door to open, and then the music that I gave back to everybody else was that much more powerful or connective. Because I've had very good universal language rooms, Shoshana, as you mentioned, you did.
Right.
But to see something that I've created go up another level through being a student of another person was fantastic. So he has an ability to not even let you know you're meditating. When people talk a certain way and they say we're doing a meditation, you think, oh, I've got to achieve something here.
Right.
He's just talking to you like you're having coffee still. And so there's visualization, there's being aware of the body, there's sensations, there's embodiment of, is God in us and around us. And there's so much ways that you're just sitting and talking with a friend, and the doors open for me. And I noticed that the universal language room piece that we did was that much more powerful. And of course it was a little bit more powerful because I brought Hebrew letters in and I added that layer. But I would say that is the spark where I thought, we gotta keep this going. I gotta keep learning from him and finding any excuse to call him and ask him questions. And I've been pretty well behaved about that, but sometimes I slip. But I've learned so much. So that's really the spark of having a friend and having someone to teach you, and certainly, and I've given over some music ideas too. But that's what I love about this whole project. It's been all about collaboration. There's really no hierarchy. It's really friends exchanging ideas and becoming students / teachers and switching those roles. And I think that to me is how I would define the spark.
It sounds great. Like anybody who's listening now would be like, I want in on that. Like the two of y'all together, it sounds very powerful. Michael, have any of the participants shared their thoughts with you after they've done a ULR from one of your programs? And what have their reactions been? How have they taken it in? Have you followed up with them after that to see if they've continued with all of this in other ways from things that they have learned from y'all? What is participants' reaction?
I think there are a couple. One, first of all, everyone walks in nervous, right?
They don't know what.
What is this universe? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think to a person, there's a real sense of just what Jason was talking about. First, calming the mind, the body, getting a real sense of it's okay to be still. And it's okay to let that come forth and have gratitude for the moment, and then to take it and participate in the creation of music. It really, so people talk about this was way beyond what I expected. I'm walking out with a calm energy, and most of us experience energy one way or the other. Calmness and energy usually doesn't go together. And so they're coming out with this great sense of elevation from the music, but a foundation of calmness. And I've followed up with a couple of them, and I know that they really enjoyed it because they keep saying, as soon as COVID's over, you're going back to the JCC. So I think it's very, and some of them now have started coming to the Monday night group that I'm now running on Zoom because we can't meet Ansha anymore. But it's an interesting combination. I want to just go back to what Jason says, because even though he calls me his teacher, he's my teacher. And I want to, from just a very personal way, talk about what happens when you can create music. I am stone deaf in one ear. I cannot carry a tune. Words are difficult for me. And to sit with Jason in the Universal Language Room and experience, probably for the first time in my life, creating music and having it, feeling it inside, that was an incredible experience. That sense of, wow, this isn't beyond me. I'm opening a door. I can see how this is so wonderful and enriching. And so for that, thanks, Jason. I don't think I ever formally thanked you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Beautiful.
That is beautiful. That's what I was just going to say. And that was actually going to be my next question, Michael, as well. Jason shared what he's learned from you, but obviously it certainly goes both ways, and it really is more about a collaboration and a partnership than anything else, and working together.
Absolutely. And he's also introduced me to Abulafia, who's just a fascinating figure in our history. Yeah.
Right. All of this talk about meditation and mindfulness. My dad's a psychiatrist, and I can just hear his voice in my head right now because he specializes in hypnosis. And so growing up, it was always about, the messages that we're hearing from other people and choosing your words carefully and being present. So this is it's all coming full circle. I'm having a moment. Jason, we've just got a few more minutes left. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us to wrap it up? Maybe plans for the future with COVID and then without COVID, where you see things going with y'all's work together?
Great. Well, I want to thank you again, Shoshana, for hosting. It just makes it so much fun to work with you. You're an amazing facilitator. This is our third session. I go back and watch the other videos to get inspiration through the day. In terms of Beit Abulafia, I've reserved a website. I'd like to make it a resource and build it up for post-COVID. I would like to give the website for the Universal Room, which is ULR1.com. I would like to encourage Michael to give out information so people can learn about his Zoom call, because I attend those calls. My family's attended those calls, very beneficial. So I think my wish and prayer is that Abulafia and also like-minded rabbis or other great rabbis that wrote in this fashion, that this idea of combination of letters, mindfulness, music, creativity, particularly in the Orthodox Jewish world, expands and grows, because I think a lot of times in an Orthodox community, there's a template that people try to achieve of a certain look, feel, and everything like that. And I love the directives. That's why I'm in it. But I think it's good to add the balance of personal expression and personal acceptance of the things that don't fit. So I think Abulafia and mindfulness is a wonderful tool. I hope other tools are created. Those don't have to be the only two, but I'm very blessed to have this working relationship and friendship with Michael and to express it on this video. And it's just been a pleasure.
Oh, good. So that made me think, Jason, it's not either or, it's both and. So we can have the emotional aspect, and then we can have all the other parts of our religion also. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So I think if more people are aware of that, they're like, oh, this is okay. We can do this, and we should do this, I think.
Very well said. I would just say we're just trying to integrate other good pieces, rediscovering our meditative tradition, and then integrating it. And it's not with a challenge to things that are going on. It's just to add flavor.
Absolutely. Right. I mean, it enlightens us anyway. It's only good.
Yes.
Yeah. Michael, share with us a little bit, how would people find you for your Monday Zoom meetings, and then a little bit about what you have planned in the near future and then going forward.
For the Monday night Zoom meetings, the easiest way to reach me is the website mindful@methodist.org. Those are all letters, no symbols, mindful@methodist.org. That's where I offer a mindfulness-based stress reduction class through Methodist Le Bonheur Healthcare, and they can find my email address there, and that's the easiest. You can just send me an email saying, I'd like to come to the Monday night Zoom, and I'll put you on the reminder list.
Great.
It's interesting. I'm teaching at MBSR right now. We're going to launch another class in the fall and a number of cycles coming up in 2021. And I'm also working on a couple of other curriculums that brings contemplative Jewish practice into the world, which I think is very important. I would disagree a little, Shoshana, on one thing you said. I think that if people do not discover the emotional and the joyous part of prayer, of davening in Judaism, it becomes very brittle, potentially, and there's always a threat that people will say, I can't get what I need here, and go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it makes so much sense for us to have people be aware that, as you said, it's both. It's an and, not an or. But the and's important, that you can experience all this within a Jewish setting.
Absolutely.
And it can be a very uplifting, powerful, and deep religious experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I've personally experienced that, so I know exactly what you mean. And I have a feeling that other people have been in that same place too. Yes, you're right. Gentlemen, thank you. We have come to, I feel like we could keep talking about it, but we've come to the end of our time. This was lovely. Michael, it was so great to have you join us. You shared wonderful information that I think is going to be really helpful for people. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. And Jason, as always, another one down.
Yep.
And I'm sure we'll see you on the next one.
Great completion. Thank you, Michael, for coming. Thank you, Shoshana, for hosting. Just a wonderful conversation. I hope it sparks more.
Yes.